And then you can pull Instagram too on your phone.
Are we good?
We are good.
We are good, Art.
All right,
It's
so
5:30.
welcome everybody. As usual, I've got a tequila in my hand, and as usual, Paramols on the other side, 6 feet under. No, 6 feet above the ground, but perfectly far enough away from me.
And happy drinking my own tequila.
Yeah, the tequila that I just sipped to get enough courage to do this went down the wrong pipe, but I'm resilient.
Sounds like you're doing more than okay with a couple tequilas already down.
Anyway, you got some questions?
I do have some questions. Again, these are not my questions. I think the cool thing about this Tequila Time is that these are all based on your audience questions. So why don't we just start with some of the common questions we're getting? How about
Okay,
that?
you know what the really cool thing about the Tequila Time is the tequila.
Okay,
It's
what
a
are you
good
drinking? What
excuse.
tequila are you drinking today? Is it a different
Don't
one?
ask that. I think it's a Costco brand.
Ah, okay.
Big bottle, more money for your buck.
I
Or
think we
more,
need to-
alcohol for your buck. Go ahead.
We need to share your address so people can send you some better tequila. Maybe.
Come on.
Okay.
That's groveling.
First question is from Bill. Bill Cubitt wants to know if you have met in person the Canadian wildlife artist Robert Bateman.
Robert Bateman. Of course I have. He lives just up on Salt Spring Island in the Canadian San Juans, just north of the Washington border. But Robert and his wife Birgit and Gabrielle and I led a tour down the Taku River. It's got to be about 22 years ago. But yeah, we had an 11-day voyage on rafts through beautiful wilderness. Love the guy, but his work is extraordinary.
Interesting. Thank you for that. By the way, already as a reminder, Art, given that you talked about your beautiful Japanese garden, there's already been a reminder. Thank you, Images by Gretchen, that yes, it's not lost on us that we want to see Art's garden. Do you think we could do today?
Well, I'm watching a rain squall head north of here, and it's raining right now, but if it stops in the next 15 minutes, we'll go out there, and if it doesn't stop raining, we'll do a little walk through the house and do the garden tour next week.
So either case, we'll have something interesting today, either a garden.
45 years of working worldwide in the field, I don't do rain.
And it never rains in Seattle.
No, I've been
so-
out in the worst deluges in the Amazon you can imagine. So a little bit of rain won't stop us. But if it's really pouring, it's right on the edge. I can see light to the left. Anyway, we'll do either the house tour or the garden tour, depending on what the conditions are in 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go to the next question then. It's from Mark Liverman. Wants to know, tell us about one of your worst or craziest experience you have had shooting. Maybe a place you would never want to go back ever again. Not in this life.
Well, there's places that I would never want to go back again. But the craziest story, and this is really memorable, is I was with my film crew doing Travels to the Edge. We were in Ulaanbaatar doing, getting ready to do our episode on Mongolia. And we came in from Seoul, Korea, and I've got to make this fast because we don't have that much time, but it's a long story short. We were eating at an Indian restaurant above the main square in Ulaanbaatar, and I asked our guide, what's happening down on the street? Because we started seeing people amassing below the restaurant in front of the main square. And he looked out and said, quite honestly, I don't know, I've never seen this before. And it kept on building and building, and people are bringing in flags and banners and things like that. And suddenly we noticed out of the corner of our eye, hundreds and hundreds of policemen coming in with batons and shields and helmets. And suddenly there's this all-out riot happening right below our Indian curry. And I told Gab to get our cameras, which were in an apartment building not too far away. We waded in to this riot, and now there's thousands of protesters, there's hundreds of policemen. We got in between as if we're war correspondents, and we're filming both sides, and suddenly bricks are going over our head. Tear gas landed next to us. I'm thinking I'm getting Pulitzer Prize winning photographs, and as it turned out, I had no film in my camera. I shot nothing. I shot hundreds of exposures with nothing in the camera. Fortunately, Gabrielle had film in this camera, This tells you how long ago it was. We were shooting film. But that was crazy. 5 people were killed that night. They burned down the communist headquarters because they had an election and the communists declared victory, and the people knew that wasn't true. And they declared martial law. They shut down the international airport. And this is on our first day of our shoot. And at 2 o'clock that morning, we were able to get out on a flight to the hinterlands, out away from the capital, and by the time we came back, everything had settled down. But by far, that was the most unexpected, interesting story I've got.
Wow. Would you go back again?
Of course. In fact, I'm leading a tour there next year.
Wow. That is so like Art. That is so like Art. By the way,
on that becomes an expression now.
That is so like Art. On a more serious note,
Yeah.
I love some of these comments. In fact, Images by Gretchen again. I think Images by Gretchen, if you're hearing us, you are hilarious. Her very serious comment, looking out for your tequila is when you do the garden tour, she wants to make sure it doesn't dilute your tequila. So can you make sure it doesn't happen?
Well, as I said last week, I told Gabrielle 4 shots of tequila to make a margarita. In fact, it's generally 1 shot, right? So no worries here.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, back to our questions. This one is from Devendra Kumar Shivalingam. I hope I got the name right. Which is the most challenging wildlife subject you have photographed or not yet photographed that you want to? Most challenging.
Wow. I would say the snow leopard. Just simply because the snow leopard's at great elevation, generally in cold environments. It is getting easier now, but I've not been back. I went there about 7 years ago, worked around 15,000 feet in February in the Himalaya. That's really cold. I'm going back next year, and I'm going to try because I'm working on this book on international wildlife, which I mentioned last week, and I've got to get the snow leopard. I did actually get a shot of a snow leopard last time, a mother with 2 cubs. But if you look at the viewfinder, there's a tiny little circle in the middle from where you focus. Within that tiny little circle, if you blew that up, there were 3 little dots within that circle. Those were my shots. So I've got to go back. But snow leopards are tough, but they're becoming, the mystery of their behavior, the locations is becoming more and more common. There's more people that are getting photographs, and I think that shows what's happening worldwide. You know, animals, I mentioned last week I was surrounded by mountain lions. Historically, that would have been impossible. But animals are becoming habituated, they're getting used to people, and therefore our opportunities are opening up.
That's very cool. Is that one of your, is that your favorite cat? There's a question here. They all love big cats. So,
you know, I think probably the most difficult would be the Siberian tiger. They're all great. To me, you know, whatever cat I'm photographing is great. I like cats, I like dogs, but big cats are pretty special. And I think the Siberian tiger probably would be my favorite cat, just simply because they're highly endangered, their environment is shrinking, they're living in Siberia and Manchuria, and it's just a tough cat to get.
Interesting. Well, on the same theme of wildlife, it's a good segue. A question from Andy Byers. Andy has a small pack of urban coyotes in the forested park next to his apartment building. So this is interesting, Andy. Lucky guy, I'd say. I have a lot of other neighbors. I don't have coyotes. And he has some long glass, and he wants to know any advice on how to safely and morally look at them and their den. He has never done this. This is
a tough one because, yeah, if there is a den site, you really don't want to disturb the den, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the real answer on that. I know that urban coyotes are becoming, you know, mainstay in most major cities. I mean, a coyote killed a cat, my neighbor's cat, on my porch. I came home from a trip, and there was all this fur around the front door, and I asked my neighbor, is that your cat? What, that was your cat, right? And a coyote had killed it. So we have coyotes coming through my garden, and they are living in most cities. They are a perfect example of an animal that's completely at ease in urban environments. But when it comes to getting close to a den site, It all depends whether you could photograph from afar and photograph them without disturbing them, which I've done with with timber wolves up in the Arctic before, using very long lenses. But with coyotes in neighborhood green belts, I'm not sure you could get close enough to them without them leaving.
Interesting. How do you pronounce? I mean, what's the right pronunciation? Is it coyote or coyote? I learn every time I talk to you. I don't know what it is, or it doesn't matter.
Well,
it's the
I
same
ask
animal.
questions after I've had tequila that I can't answer. I've always called them coyotes, but in fact, a single one would be a coyote.
Oh.
If I'm wrong, don't tell me.
Anyone in the audience, is this news to you? This is news to me. This is good.
Well,
okay.
if I'm wrong, we're actually establishing a new order here.
There you go. I think I like that answer. Let's do one more question and then maybe do the garden tour.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
I have one I've seen quite a bit, unless you have one.
Okay, go for it.
Post-processing. People keep asking, Art, do you post-process your images or edit your own images?
Oh yeah, yeah, I actually do. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm type A.
No, it's really hard to tell.
This is true. Let's just say I'm on safari somewhere, India or Africa or South America. When I shoot during the course of a day, I will come back to my room, back to wherever I've got electricity and I've got my computer plugged in. I'll upload the images from that day. I will enter them into Lightroom. I will, before I go to bed that night, have pulled all my favorites into a catalog. And I'll do this religiously because when I come home from a trip, say I shoot 10,000 images on a 10-day trip to South America, when I arrive back in Seattle, I'm likely to have 800 to 1,000 photos on my computer. The rest are deleted, but all 1,000 photos have been worked on and are ready for lectures or the internet. They're not ready for making prints, but they're ready for the internet and for lectures. And so I'm compulsive about staying abreast with the shooting. Otherwise, all I'm doing is spending money on memory and storage, and I don't want to do that. And nobody in my office really wants to edit the work. And so I do all that. And with regards to what I do, I basically work in Lightroom. Frequently, I'm traveling with Thomas Noel, who wrote Photoshop. He's a good friend of mine, and his wife Cheryl, and they travel with me frequently on 2 or 3 trips a year. And so it's nice to travel with the very guy that created Photoshop, that heads up the Lightroom team. And if I'm stuck working on an image, I just, say, hey Thomas, what will you do here? But regardless, I am staying abreast on it, and I do all the editing and all the uploading and all the deleting, and I'm ruthless when it comes to deleting because people keep too many copies of the same thing. So 1 or 2 copies of one series, and the rest gets deleted.
Anthony, did you know he's type A? And that sounds like so double type A to me.
Yeah.
It's like triple type A.
I'll make a list of everything I need to do the following day, but I also make little squares so I can check that list.
Okay,
I'll make up things just so I have a box to check.
Okay, I have a question for the audience based on what they just heard about your personality. Question number 1. Does Art do his bed right after he get up?
I do.
That's the question for the audience, my
That's
friend.
the first thing I do is make my bed.
And second, does he have coffee before brushing or after?
Brushing what? Yes, I make coffee. It's a ritual. I do have an espresso machine. If I do my tour of my house, it's a modest house, so don't look forward to it. But I do have a lot of nice pieces of art that I've collected over the years. Not expensive art, but memories. I'll show you my espresso machine. So I take tequila to put me down at night and caffeine to wake me up.
And then you're just running. Yeah.
And what temperature is the coffee at?
120 degrees.
Right on.
Yeah, Starbucks cooks their coffee a little too hot.
Well, on that segue about the house, I think maybe we should just go to the garden tour now.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you up for it?
sorry.
How's the tequila without diluting? Remember, that is a critical need here.
Dude, I'm going to be manning a camera, so I'd probably leave my tequila.
We can
in
have
the
it.
house.
Yeah, probably leave it down.
Okay, let's do that.
So audio might get a little bit different. We're going to unplug the mics to go outside.
So folks, hang in there. Hang in there.
Again, this isn't like a major, the gardens of Versailles, France, but it is a nice little garden that I've worked on.
That one will stay that way.
All right, so I'm going to take you out to the garden.
So if you guys want to jump on Instagram, you'll have a point of view from Art's view. And if you want to...
Oh, wait a minute, I'm filming myself.
Yeah.
I guess...
There we go.
Okay, this is what you get to see.
And then Instagram's going to be his view, and I'll be following Art.
All right, so, yeah, it's still sprinkling, but that's okay. Moisture is good for the skin. So I'm going to show you my koi. As I said a couple of weeks ago, these koi, oh, there's the big one. That's wildlife right there. After tequila, I hope I don't drop. And a view to the west on a very rainy day. Yeah, actually there's the hot tub. There's the hot tub. And on a really
Reminds me of Japan. Gorgeous garden.
On a really nice day, you would see the Olympics, snow-clad mountains, but right now, nothing. Okay, so I've been told not to go too fast. Yeah, there's a reason I don't shoot video. I'm still a still photographer. Past the pond, stopping at a little tiny pine tree. That's the pine tree that I actually have manicured for the last 30 years. Oh, walked into my front door. So, everybody getting sick? This is the bridge over the stream and the waterfall, and only one person has fallen into the pond on a New Year's Eve, and it wasn't me, but they were so drunk that they enjoyed the water. Anyways, it's a koi.
Your step.
Waterfall. So what happens here is I have a stream that I've created using a backhoe, and we carved out a pond and a stream bed that runs down through the garden all the way down to my garage, and then is pumped back up. And with this water in the garden, it brings in a lot of wildlife. So I've had fox, coyotes, otters, eagles, sharks and hawks, owls, and my favorite bird of all was a water ouzel who worked the better part of an afternoon in my manufactured garden. It thought it was a real stream. I'm going to pull back to my pine trees. These pine trees, this one is from Japan, and it's probably 100 years old, and I bonsai it every year. I prune the needles, and I have about 30 of these beautiful pine trees in my garden. And I have a little stairway over the pond. Basically, I love this garden because it gives me a lot of things for a type A person to work on. And that's what I do when I come back from a trip. The first 24 hours when I'm back from a trip is to work in the garden. I'm kind of avoiding Anthony. Oops. And this walks down to the cars of my friends. Beautiful azaleas are blooming. These maples, these Japanese maples, all came out. All the leaves came out in the last week. A week ago, they were just buds. And as you ascend into the garden, you walk past this beautiful waterfall. And you can hear it. So the sound of water allows me to urinate much easier when I have the windows open to my bedroom at night. That sound of rushing water is always a good impetus. So that's my garden. And what I have then bordering my home is a green belt. So there's a lot of trees surrounding the house. The old house was built in 1910, and nobody wanted to buy the house because it was covered in English ivy. So I bought it for a song in 1986, took out all the ivy and rebirthed the house and kept it pretty much as it was, the main part. And the house is hiding in the trees, as you see. So this is my garden. and my old house, which I really love. So can you imagine that house? You couldn't even see it from here. It was just all green ivy, and nobody wanted to buy it. It was on the market for 2 years, and I came along, and I saw the view, I saw the green belt, and I just said, okay, that's where I want to live. So all these trees, red pine, black pine, and Japanese maples populate my garden. And my neighbor's house way over there, great neighbors. But to have a Japanese garden means you're on your knees, pulling out the weeds, all the invasives, you're pruning the trees. And basically I do it, and if Gav is visiting, Gabrielle does it as well. So we do all the work. I don't have landscapers, but I love the work. There's something very grounding about working the soil, the trees, the natural mosses, and I have about 10 native ferns that grow in the garden. How am I doing with manipulating this camera, which I've never done before?
It's doing pretty good. It's a little sideways, but that's all right.
A little what?
A little sideways, but it's okay.
Oh.
No, I mean, you're good. You're good. It looks good. I think we're ready to go back inside, though, and we got about...
You know what? Let's just look at the north side of the house.
Okay.
I don't want to go inside. Okay, we're going to walk around the house. I'm up on the hill about, I would say about 200 feet above the saltwater Puget Sound. I've literally seen orcas from my bed. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. And on the north side of the house is another water feature, which is down below. So water surrounds my house, as do the trees. So from my kitchen and from the house and every view from the house, there are trees. And then we walk literally around the house. Gabrielle's in there working on the computer, still stuck, can't get home. And this green belt is really one of the reasons I moved in. Because in the green belt are barn owls, screech owls are in my bird boxes. And so though I'm in Seattle, I am surrounded by forest and trees. And it's a great find.
Did you design it?
Did I design what? The garden? Yes.
The garden, yes, he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, that was the tequila.
Oh, that's because... All right, I think we're good. Yeah.
That was tequila right there.
Okay.
All right. So let's go back in.
Here, take this one. Oh, yeah, you got it.
Back around. So I'm not, this is a fairly inexpensive house, but I love the age of it. Sorry, oh my God,
Here, let me see.
I'm stabilizing it with my hand.
I could just take it.
Okay, you take it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Instagram, got a little wonky, but we're live here.
We're walking back into my house.
Okay, there we go. Now we're good.
So you saw the heavens? Were you looking straight up?
How peaceful, great job. Is that stream a water feature or natural?
Water feature.
So water.
It's all enclosed water that keeps being recycled. Hey, Paramore, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm seeing the comments that people are loving your garden.
All right.
And you know what, they're impressed? They think you're also a good photographer.
Oh, really?
Is that news to you?
You know, I feel like a carpenter with a camera. You know, I take no pride in the photos I do, but I love the fact that I've often said, the camera is a passport to the world. I grew up in a very economically modest family. My dad worked until he was 85, passed away around 94. We're workers, we know how to work, but the camera and getting, compliments over my work is very nice to receive, but I'm not like arrogant about that. I hope people understand that. I really love what I do, but I'm now dribbling on. Forget about it. I'm embarrassed now in front of everybody.
Well, you know what? I mean,
We knew you were multi-talented, is what it says.
Here's a great comment, that I think you would love, and I think you should hear this, is that they think your garden, Japanese garden, is even better than the Japanese garden in Portland.
In where?
In Portland.
Oh,
The famous Japanese
nice.
garden. They think
Thank
it's
you.
even better.
Thank you. So behind me are antlers that I found in the Olympic Mountains, and next week I'm going to walk you through the house and talk about certain artwork that I've collected over the years. And every room in my house is special to me, and so I keep the house open, and I host everything from the Sheldrick Elfin Orphanage fundraisers to political campaigns, gay rights organizations. All those people come to this home and are able to host fundraisers. So, anyway, what are we doing here?
We are just having fun. We're just having fun. Well,
We got about 4 minutes left.
4 minutes left.
So,
But this is
sit
good,
back down and
Let's just
answer
sit
more
back down.
questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we're switching
The
spots.
margarita is right over there.
okay, I'm just gonna handhold him for the rest of the time. So,
Okay. Which is my margarita and which is yours? Because I don't really want ours. Take a chance right there.
Let's take a chance. And, well, really awesome
close the
to...
door so
Let me
that-
close the door.
I can do it.
Oh, you can do it, yeah. Hopefully there was good audience. We tried our best in terms of, it was drizzling a little bit, but again, this is really about giving you all what you want, and, it's a dialogue between you and Art, so hopefully you enjoyed it. And let's do the home tour next time.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I'll make sure
Yeah.
it's clean.
planning trip to Patagonia. Any tips?
Yeah. When I think of Patagonia, and I'm down there at least once a year. It's windy and it's cool, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place. You could literally fly into Calafate in Argentina or Punta Arenas in Chile, rent your own car and go driving or bicycling. It's like driving in Montana. There's hardly anybody down there. The fact that you may or may not speak Spanish is not an obstacle because enough people speak English down there. But it's a beautiful country. Just don't underestimate wind and cool temperatures and you'll be fine. And it's a great place. Scenery, wildlife, experience is just great.
Awesome.
One question I think, Art, you asked the audience, you asked your fans is the trips that they have on their wish list, on their bucket list.
Oh, yeah.
And thanks to everyone for answering. And Art, go for what you kind of
Yeah.
heard.
Here's what we learned. People want to go to Africa, Antarctica, South Georgia Island, Siberia, the Galapagos, New Zealand, Iceland, Tasmania, Seychelles Islands. Florida, Central Oregon, Louisiana. So these are all places I've been multiple times. Siberia, once. In the middle of the winter in February in 1986. It was not a happy place, but I'd go back. But I would say thank you for responding to the request. We will literally formulate some of our travels in the years to come based on what you have offered to us. So what's another question we could ask people?
Well, one question that I keep hearing that we haven't addressed is, and in fact, someone just asked that question, is on books. Do you do books based on location? And then how do you even design, kind of come up with the book concept itself? Maybe that should be an episode. I mean, you could take a crack at it right now, but that could be...
I shoot prolifically. Is that pronounced correctly?
You did great.
Yeah. So I shoot a lot of stuff, and I'm traveling all the time. And eventually, photos that are similar find each other. And when you have 5 or 6 photos, you have the beginning of a concept. When you have 10 to 15, you have the big, basically a magazine article. And when you got 25 to 50, you have basically a book. And so I've done well over 100 books in my career. largely because I keep shooting a lot, and those photos find each other and they formulate an idea. And I travel internationally, so it's always with the idea that whatever may be true in Africa certainly could be true in Australia or South America or Central Asia. So I love showing the world through the prism of similarities rather than divisiveness, politically or religiously or ethnically. I want to show us as humans rather than diversity in terms of negativity. Now you truly know that I have been drinking tequila. There is actually tequila in this glass, otherwise I'm stammering and stuttering. But that's the concept. The books I've worked on, I've got 7 under contract, and I know I said this a couple weeks ago, that, well, I'll tell you, I used to work with a gentleman by the name of Brant Aymar. He worked for, I think it was Doubleday, or one of the big publishers on the East Coast. He was 95 when I met him. And every time I would work on a book with him, before we finished that book, he would say, Art, what's the next book we're going to work on? And I figured out after about 7 books with Brant that he was using me to stay alive. And so I always thought that's a great plan, is you never die when you've got a book under contract. And so I want to stay relevant and moving forward by always having these projects that get me out of bed. That's simply put. As long as I've got a reason to get out of bed, I'll get out of bed. If I've got no projects working on, I used to shoot a lot for stock, but stock kind of went south on us in 2008. The world, devalued the photos. So now we're teaching, we're doing photo tours. I'm doing books not because of the money, but because it gives me a reason to get out of it.
That is so wonderful. Well, every time you ask your fans a question, do you have any question for them for this time that they could comment or participate in? I put you on the spot.
Spontaneously.
Okay, think about that. I have something to ask to the audience. Think about that.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds and a sip of tequila. How does that sound? Okay. Audience, big shout out to Anthony, whose name I also called Jonathan in episode 1. He has been working really hard to make sure all this technology thing works. Here's what I'd say. We have Facebook and Instagram. For all the Facebook people, get your ass on Instagram. Also, it makes it a lot easier. The quality is great too. We will try to support both as much as we can. It does make it easier for you all on Instagram. Art Wolfe, beautiful name, iconic photographer, very easy to find on Instagram. If you don't know, we will tell you what the Instagram handle is. With that, Art, back to you. Do you have an answer?
Well, I can tell you, my name is Arthur Richard Wolfe. People often ask me if my real name is Art Wolfe, and my friends shortened my name from Arthur to Art, and suddenly that's my name. By the way, I hosted a party of people that I've known since grade school, people that have known me since 5 years old, and that was on February 29th, prior to all the COVID isolation. I had 50 people that I've known since grade school, and they all called me Arthur. So I knew the group knew me a very long, long time. But in terms of questions, wow. Here's a question. I am looking for a couple of cities on the East Coast that have degraded environments. Because we teach workshops in Astoria, Oregon. We've done one in Atlanta. We're looking at the Northeast, where we come to you. And it's got to be a place. Did I ask this already? Because
No.
It sounds familiar. Okay. Anyway, we're looking for a place that has good restaurants, but has some safe, degraded environments from which we can go into the barrios or whatever you may want to call it, and find beauty out of decay. And we call that photography as art. And it is among the most rewarding work and teaching I ever done, and certainly the Astoria workshops fill out constantly. People really love pushing themselves, and it's a great metaphor, finding beauty in decay, finding birth and renewal and art and aesthetics in what people pass by and disregard. And so it's all mental. It's learning to see more properly. And we're looking for places Perhaps it's Pittsburgh, perhaps it's Bethlehem, where old industry has now been abandoned, but those old factories are still around. So if you have some idea, give it to us. Because I don't, quite honestly, have the time to go and investigate all these different locations. It's really the eyes and the intellect of the people that are watching. And so that would really help us out. And you would not be surprised then that we would be teaching a workshop there in the couple of years to come.
That is great. Great question. In fact, you already have some suggestions already, so keep them coming. Art, as we close it out, any final comments?
No, I didn't fall in the pond and I haven't finished this, so everything will be culminated shortly.
Great. Thank you. Again, it was awesome to see the garden, and next time the home. So thanks, everyone, and thanks, Art.
All right. Thank you, guys.
And that one.